Happy Tuesday afternoon. I'm Colette Linden.
And I'm Danny Dupuis. Welcome back to the special report.
Thanks, Danny. Actually, it's DJ Danny D.
We're trying. Being creative, you know. We talked about some laughs. We're trying out some new nicknames. We also have Chris the Chameleon in the corner.
Oh, right. I forgot about the chameleon.
I'm the official mascot of the show, actually.
Yes.
Made from pipe cleaners. So, yeah.
Well, Chris, the chameleon, what do you have for us for COVID-19 for a quick little update before we start the show?
Sure. Well, we have now tested 356 people here in Algoma. As I mentioned this morning, we have our 5th positive case, man in his 20s who had traveled to Mexico. We're still waiting for 156 test results to come in. I'm also going to give an update about the nursing home that has had an outbreak in Bobcaygeon, and then we'll also look at some of the frontline workers that are not getting the same sort of airplay that others are, and that is the cleaners. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Chris. Now, in typical fashion in our midday report, I usually cut Chris off because of the premier, and that will likely happen again today. We are waiting for him to join us. We do feel that he's going to touch on the education,
yes,
and the education closures, or you know,
just some general information that maybe we don't know yet.
That's right. So maybe school's out for summer might be what we're hearing, but we did hear that elementary schools will likely go back in May. I don't know what you feel about that.
That is going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But as a quick update, Izzy, the beautiful Izzy, who is a student at Cora Collegiate. Hi, Izzy. She sent us a text message saying, not sure if you got this email, but they're starting online classes for students, and they have sent a survey to let teachers know if students don't have a laptop or anything what they need to use for classes. So
that's smart, because some students unfortunately may not have that luxury of having those items.
Yeah,
so everything's online now. How do you access it? Our library is closed too, so I mean, right now too, it's accommodating for those kids who are being taught at home. And fortunately, I don't have any kids, so I don't know what's going through many parents' minds right now. And as yourself, working mom too, Colette, like, how are your kids doing through this?
Well, I'm lucky that I have an older child taking care of a younger child who apparently makes better eggs than me now. Yesterday I was making Dante some eggs, and Connor makes them better. So
don't worry, my nephew, I'm the only person who can make him pancakes. He won't eat them from anyone else, only Auntie Dan's pancakes. It's great.
So we just, as you notice on the screen here, we were just waiting for the premier to come out. So like I said, when he comes out, we will cut to the premier. Chris, while we're waiting for the premier to come out, do you have any insight or thoughts on this education announcement that we're probably going to hear?
Well, the Education Minister, Stephen Lecce, will be at this announcement. He's going to obviously be pushing the school year further into the future. We're still under quarantine, actually past the date of when they said the kids were going to go back to school. We're probably going to see this date pushed, I'm guessing, at least until mid-May, because we're no way going to have a hold of the COVID-19 situation by then. We know from all the modeling that's being done that we are still 2 weeks at least away from peak cases each day before we will start to go on the downslope, where we will hopefully have less cases each day and we'll get more a handle on the situation. We're probably going to see him delay it till at least mid-May.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because, as you said about online learning, that's great if you have a laptop or a computer at home or a tablet to do it on, but a lot of the people who are less fortunate don't have that ability. That same problem is actually happening right now with people trying to apply for unemployment insurance. Because they don't have the libraries to go and apply to, and Service Canada, the union, is refusing to have any contact with the public and has locked the doors. Basically, the union employees refuse to work. We're calling in sick. So now that you can only do it over the phone or online, and so the phone system apparently for Service Canada is a nightmare, so people like to try and do it online instead of waiting on hold for 13 hours. And that's just not feasible for the predominant amount of people who have actually lost their jobs are low wage and low skilled jobs. And a lot of them just do not have the money to even have a home computer with internet and so on, because they need to buy food over watching Netflix. So unfortunately, this entire COVID-19 epidemic is actually hitting the working poor the most, both the adults and the kids. I guess we'll see what happens there, but I think if they move all the learning online, it's not a good idea because it's just not feasible. Probably for 15% of all the students, they just will not be able to participate, and that's not fair to them because education is the only way to get ahead in life, and you're just putting them behind the 8 ball even more. Yeah. Back to the desk.
See,
thanks, Chris.
What I would love to know from some parents too are those mothers, fathers who have multiple children in different grades. Like, how do you accommodate for that?
Sure, and that's kind of where I fall into that, if I don't want to interrupt you. But you did ask me earlier what the kids are going to do. Well, this is really going to, now, we have to sit down and make a plan now. I do push reading, and like I said, we're going to try and learn a new language and push that. But exercise is still a key part of these.
The virus isn't airborne. We know that. Yeah. I mean, you can go outside, still do those activities and stuff like that. And with the schools, the parks being closed now officially,
there's another restriction, which is understandably so. Like, you're closing the parks. So we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we did talk a little bit about tips on to have some patience. Have some patience with your children, with your spouse, and actually Chris tomorrow morning is going to highlight some tips on surviving the quarantine. But until we come back, I hope you enjoy these commercials.
Did you know that 1 in 3 people are affected by fire in their lifetime? Or that 1 in 3 fire deaths happen in homes with no working smoke alarms? You may have just seconds to safely escape a fire in your home. That's why early detection of fire is absolutely vital. Only working smoke alarms provide those precious seconds you and your family need to safely escape. Install smoke alarms on every story and outside all sleeping areas of your home. For added protection, install a smoke alarm in every bedroom. Test smoke alarms monthly by pressing the test button. If the alarm doesn't sound, install a new battery. Replace alarm batteries at least once a year and whenever the low battery warning chirps. And if the alarm still doesn't sound, replace the alarm with a new one. Smoke alarms have an expiry date. Remember to check the back of the smoke alarm for dates of manufacture. Replacement is within the time frame on the manufacturer's instructions. In most cases, 7 to 10 years. Always replace expired alarms. Remember, it's the law in Ontario to have working smoke alarms on every story of your home and outside all sleeping areas. Failure to comply with the Ontario Fire Code requirements could result in a fine or even jail time. So protect yourself and your loved ones by ensuring that all your smoke alarms are functional and up to code. For more fire safety information, please visit www.saultsaintmarie.ca/firesafe.
You're watching On TV.
Hello and welcome back. So as we had our short little 2-minute break, some interesting news just came through on Twitter, and now the federal government is waiving the monthly rent of airports to help with the revenue drop. I mean, they're just pulling all this money out. So one of the questions too is, how much money is all of it at this point? I mean, who knows how long it's going to be until we even get businesses back up and running, but now having the airports affected, that they're sending the monthly revenue and everything, it's just, wow, like it's amazing to see like what's going on and how everyone's accommodating to this new outbreak and situation we're facing.
Right. Well, who wants to get on an airplane now and sit in recycled air for 3 hours? I mean, one of the things I don't understand is, like, when we find out someone on an airplane is ill, we only say, oh, the people just sitting right around them are the only ones that should be concerned. Well, you're breathing recycled air, possibly, depending on the length of the flight. I mean, if you're going from one side of North America to the other, you're on that flight for 5.5, 6 hours, and you guys are all just breathing recycled air the whole time. I don't see how anyone would want to get on a plane right now. I know I have no interest in that. I'd rather drive and take extra time.
And not just planes, we're talking trains too. I mean, just all modes of transportation. So again, that kind of brings us into what we wanted to talk about, and that's just having some patience, having patience with your children, which at most times is not easy. But
with patience too, I was speaking with my sister. She works at PetSmart, and really awesome what they're doing too. They're essential service, pet foods. We still got to feed our pets, but they're offering an online service where you can go in and order your products, and what the workers will do, they'll package it all up, and then they'll have it ready for you to pick up at the door. But what some people are doing is they're ordering online. 2 seconds later, they're going to the store to pick it up. Well, it's like, there's a list. You gotta wait.
Just a little.
Yeah, we gotta let people know you gotta be patient. Like, just because you put it in for a pickup delivery doesn't mean it's gonna be ready like this. Just give the workers some time to prep as well, because everyone is going to online right now. So you can't expect your stuff to be ready just in seconds. Give them time.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, so have patience not just with your spouse or your partner or your children, or everybody's kind of going stir crazy. We are fortunate that we can come into work and continue to work and be.
I get to talk to a friend.
You're essential.
Yes.
And speaking of essential, Chris, why don't you update us on some more numbers? I know you have quite a few numbers in front of you that I think is really important for everyone to know.
Yes, this was literally just released about 8 minutes ago. The global death toll now from COVID-19 has hit 40,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
The death tolls in Western Europe and the US are really adding to the death toll right now. Just in the last 24 hours, Spain had 849 people die. Germany now has over 67,000 confirmed cases and 650 deaths. What else we got here? We're looking at, 172,000 people who've had COVID-19 have actually recovered. So that's a faint glimmer of hope that people will recover more than they will die from this. And the U.S. right now has become the real epicenter. They have almost 165,000 cases. To put that into perspective, that's like 2 Sault Ste. Marie's full of sick people, and 3,170 deaths. That would be like Sault College dying, basically. Because they have approximately 3,000 students. So that kind of gives you an idea of the what's going on in the U.S. Now, I have reported on a nursing home in Bobcaygeon. Yesterday I told you that 9 people had died. Now that's up to 12 residents who have died, and they have 24 staff who are confirmed to have the COVID-19 virus, and also 1 volunteer died as well. Now, this nursing home only had 65 residents to start with, and 12 of them have passed away. And a third of all the staff is now sick with COVID-19, so they're unable to work, plus their other staff is being quarantined, so it's just a nightmare there right now. Now, one part of society we have not been talking about that are on the front lines, we've been talking about the nurses and the doctors and so on the front line of healthcare. But what we have not been talking about is the cleaners. The people who go in and they clean the washrooms and clean the bathrooms. They're the dirt. That's where everybody goes and touches the sink, and then we're told to wash our hands. Cleaners are not even being provided with face masks in some cases, and some are asked to use the same gloves multiple days in a row and just wash them. And I believe we're going to Doug Ford now?
Yeah.
Okay, back to the death, sorry.
Yeah, we are going to throw to the premier shortly, but Chris, I'm really glad that you brought that up about the cleaners. And now more than ever, they are actually going out and staying on top of making sure things are clean, making disinfecting. So that's an important an issue that we're going to pick up on after we come right back from this commercial message.
Good afternoon. Nearly 2 weeks ago, on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health, we were the first province in Canada to close schools. That early action was critical in fighting the spread of COVID-19. Our medical experts are telling us that the next 2 weeks are absolutely critical for Ontario. What we do today will determine what we face tomorrow. That's why we extended the declaration of emergency for another 2 weeks. This includes extending closures of non-essential workplaces, restricting public gatherings of more than 5 people. Effective immediately, we have extended the order to close publicly funded schools until at least May the 1st for teachers and May the 4th for students. We've also extended the closure of private schools and child care centres for another 2 weeks. As I've told you before, the situation continues to change day by day, hour by hour. And in order to protect our children, I'm prepared to extend these closures even further if we have to. As I said yesterday, every week, every day, every hour, we can push back the surge on our hospitals is another week, day, hour of precious time to prepare. The more time we have, the more lives we can save. If we push that surge as far away from today as possible, we will save lives. Yesterday, we put in place a new emergency order to close all outdoor recreational amenities, including beaches, sports fields, playgrounds, and picnic areas. Everyone needs to stay home. This is absolutely critical. We can't stop COVID-19 without your full support. Please stay at home. Only go out for what you need. Don't gather in groups. Practice physical distancing. Stay in touch with loved ones by phone. And wash your hands. This is how you can help save lives. I know these extended closures will make things difficult for families. We're doing everything we can to support parents during this difficult time. We've introduced job protective leave, suspended time of use, HIDA rates, and we're putting $200 for every child under 12 and every child with special needs, $250 back in the pockets of families. And I know as a parent, nothing is more important than the education of our children. That's why we'll continue to support families who are doing their part to stay home and slow the spread of COVID-19. We're working closely with the school boards to find ways to help students complete the school year so they can advance to the next year and earn credits and graduate. We're easing the financial burden on university and college students and their families by providing a 6-month grace period through the Ontario Student Assistance Program. These new measures will help students continue their studies and get their diploma. We'll get through this for our students, for families, and for seniors, for everyone. And we will succeed thanks to the outstanding efforts of our many Ontario heroes. This isn't about our government. We have an army behind us, an army of 14.5 million people, the hardworking people of this great province. That's what keeps me going day in and day out. That's how I know we will get through this. The frontline healthcare workers coming in day after day, the businesses and workers who are stepping up, keeping vital parts of our economy going, and retooling to make essential supplies right here in Ontario. The teachers going above and beyond to keep students learning. And most of all, every single person out there that are taking our advice, staying home and doing their part. We all need to be rowing in the same direction, and together We will get through this. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. I'll hand it over to Minister Lecce.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. As the Premier made clear, we will do whatever it takes to keep students and staff safe from COVID-19. And based on the most recent advice from Dr. David Williams and the COVID-19 command table, our government confirmed that publicly funded schools will remain closed until May 4th. We're taking the next steps to provide continued learning for our children by unveiling a new teacher-led program that will keep students learning while at home. Nous veillons à ce que les élèves continuent d'apprendre tout en comptant sur le soutien et de leurs enseignants. The second phase of Learn at Home creates some predictability for our parents, our students, and our educators. We're providing expectations that parents can count on. We're enhancing support for students. We're ensuring the teacher-student relationship is restored throughout this period of school closure. Our aim is to provide all of them with some sense of stability and hope amid this difficulty. These are extraordinary times. We're moving quickly with two aims in mind. The first, to keep your child safe, and the second is to keep them engaged in learning. And I know nothing about this situation is ideal. And we recognize the difficulty that parents will face as we go forward. This pandemic has perhaps made the case so clear. We must come together, harness our collective energy, put our efforts forward to improve the situation of every child and keep them safe from COVID-19. And we are with you, providing the guidance, the resources, and the support to ensure you get through this. Today, the Premier announced the next phase of our ambitious plan to keep students engaged in learning. With Phase 2 of Learn at Home, we're laying out a new set of expectations that parents and students can count on, including first and foremost about reconnecting students with teachers and other school staff, including mental health workers, something parents and families have called on. We're ensuring the reestablishment of teacher-led learning with specific expectations for students and teachers by grade. We're requiring final report cards for all students from kindergarten to grade 12, meaning this material will be graded by your teacher with the appropriate flexibility built in as we respond to this unprecedented challenge. Students can and will continue to complete credits underway. This is especially important for senior level students. We're also prioritizing students scheduled to graduate and supporting students on their track to graduate. We're leveraging digital resources. We're embracing all forms of student-teacher connectivity based on the student's access to technology, meaning one way or another, by printed materials or tablet, every child should and will be able to continue learning through the curriculum supported by their teacher. We've also developed a training program for educators to support them in virtual learning delivery. It's clear we have to strengthen the capacities of some educators using online tools. Many do this already, and they do it well. Now our aim is to ensure all teachers have that professional development to improve for their kids. We recognize the importance of ensuring all children can learn and get ahead through this period. And we're working hard to bridge those gaps to ensure that no child falls behind. In partnership with boards of education, we're distributing laptops or devices from schools as needed. And at the ministry level, we're working with telecommunication partners through the Ontario Together portal to leverage the ingenuity and support to get technology to those that need it. We're also ensuring students with special education needs get the support they rightfully deserve. These parents are truly working so hard to support their children at home. And I want them to know that we recognize this difficulty. And that is why we are providing additional parent supports and guidance for you. Moreover, we're working hard to immediately activate the education assistants and other professional staff to support these children and their families and their educators. We know that a lot of these supports are designed for in-person instruction, but we will do whatever it takes to help your child, even if it means untraditional methods of delivery. We will never lose sight of those kids today or into the future. We also know that mental health challenges are real, facing many students, especially anxiety and confusion about what this all means to them and to their future. We're actively supporting Kids Help Phone and encouraging kids to reach out and to text the word CONNECT to 686868 right now if you're in need. We're also working to immediately unleash the full supports of mental health professionals, including psychologists and psychotherapists, social workers, to start connecting with students in a secure manner. You know, folks, the summary of this plan is that we will do whatever it takes, moving at lightning speed to give your child the education they deserve. We're doing this in partnership with directors and chairs and trustees and administrators and school boards, in partnership with teachers and worker unions, and with you, the parent. We're all in this together, and it will require all of us to work together for the good of our students, because these are unprecedented times. We are approaching the continuity of learning through an iterative lens. If we can protect some of the school year, should it be safe, then our instinct is to do so. If we can salvage part of the year for in-school instruction, of course, following the advice of Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, then we will. Our aim is to be flexible to respond to the fluid reality of COVID. However, make no mistake, only if it is safe. If it is not, and Dr. Williams recommends a further extension, then we will do so as we have done in the past. Before I turn it over to Minister Romano, I want to speak to the students in grade 11 and 12, those who look to graduate in the months or even the year ahead. To those students watching and to their parents, we will do whatever it takes to ensure you graduate, full stop. And I'll continue to work with my colleague, Minister Romano, to ensure that there will be no barriers to accessing post-secondary pathways. We have your back, and we want you to succeed. Finally, I want to give a shout out to the entire school community for rallying our frontline workers, rallying behind our frontline workers. Boards from Toronto to Halton to Upper Grand have donated significant amounts of resources and equipment to support the government and local health authorities to counter COVID-19. Thank you for our partners for your continued collaboration. This is the spirit of Ontario. It's a reflection of the deep-held values of Ontarians, to be generous, to be grateful, and to be optimistic. We will overcome this challenge, and we'll do so together. Now, one of the partners in this ministry is working with Minister Romano, who's a father and parent who wants all of our children from elementary to post-secondary to succeed. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ross Romano.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Lecce, for those words and for that introduction. And I also want to thank our Premier so much for his leadership, his commitment, his hands-on approach that has been so critical in navigating through this crisis. I also want to thank Ministers Phillips and Elliott for their continued advocacy and very hard work as we navigate through this process, and all of our ministers and members of our government. I really want to take an opportunity to say thank you to all of our post-secondary providers of education in the province of Ontario, our presidents, our administrative staff, our faculty, everyone, including our students within the post-secondary sector. I want to offer you heartfelt thanks for the incredible work that you have been doing, for the partnership that we have created together and the great work that we have done together. It's been incredible to work alongside of you as we navigate through this crisis and previous to, and certainly in the future moving forward. The amazing work that has been done by our colleges and universities as we address this crisis has been nothing short of incredible. The volunteerism, the donations that have been provided. We have institutions, colleges and universities donating PPE, donating food, doing food drives. Students going out and volunteering at long-term care homes. Students volunteering within hospitals. Providing runs of groceries to people at their homes. The support has been incredible from our sector, and I want to offer you extreme thanks and gratitude on behalf of all the people of our province. Please continue to do the great work you're doing, and we commend you for what has been done. I also want to speak briefly about the initiatives that we have taken as a sector to try to make things easier for our students to be able to graduate, have academic success and continuity of their academic success, but ensuring that the health and safety of all of the people within all of our post-secondary institutions and the communities they serve and the province they serve safe. That remains our most paramount concern. We've taken certain steps to assist the post-secondary sector. The first I would like to discuss with you today is a 6-month deferral of all OSAP loan payments. This will respect both the Canada as well as the Ontario portions of your Ontario student loans. So for all students who are presently who have graduated and are presently repaying student loans, as well as those who are about to graduate or have recently graduated and are paying student loans, they will have a 6-month deferral. This is no interest, no payments, and no collections. And I'm very happy that we are working together in unity with the federal government to provide these services. So students going through a difficult period of time, or graduates going through a difficult period of time, will be able to not be concerned at this particular juncture with those particular payments. The second initiative I want to discuss with you is a cash injection of $25 million within the 2019 fiscal budget that is being directed to all of our 45 post-secondary colleges and universities and our Indigenous institutes. These dollars are being invested directly to our institutions. All of our presidents were advised of these dollars this past Friday evening. These dollars will be used by our institutions as they see fit to address concerns surrounding the COVID crisis. I believe in the expertise of the presidents of all of our institutions. I believe they are in the best position to determine how to best appropriately manage those funds, whether it be to address specific institutional financial considerations or concerns, or specific concerns for student support. Those dollars will be invested and have been invested by our government and will be appropriately dispersed and expended by those institutions as they see fit. Lastly, I want to discuss with you a measure that I believe is incredibly important for our post-secondary sector. We knew from many weeks ago, as schools would be forced to move into an online digital format for learning, we recognized the importance of making sure that all supports were there for our colleges and our universities to be able to effectively provide continuity of academic success by ensuring that the courses students took online could be concluded by way of examinations and grading that could be done in an online format. This was a concern we knew even prior to the COVID crisis hitting us, that our universities and our colleges wanted to ensure the integrity of the degrees that they confer to the students who take the courses they take. We wanted to ensure, as every situation will arise when a student takes an exam, that they are in fact the student who they say they are, that they are not cheating or engaging in other nefarious type of conduct. We want to ensure that the proctoring of examinations can guarantee integrity of the degrees that the institutions are conferring. And equally important is ensuring the privacy interests of the students who are taking those examinations. So we moved swiftly, decisively, and made arrangements through one of our existing service providers, eCampus Learning. eCampus has retained a third-party vendor, and we are now able to provide a guarantee to all of our post-secondary institutions that the degrees that they are conferring will be maintained at the utmost integrity. The brand of our institutions will be maintained with the utmost integrity, and that students can now conduct their examinations and be graded online, which will allow continuity of academic success. And to put that into perspective, everyone, if an institution was to go out and obtain this service on their own, they would be spending anywhere from $30 to $50 per student, per hour, per examination. All of those costs would be borne by the institution independently, and we are now able to cover those costs on behalf of the sector through our ministry, and that is now providing incredible relief to our institutions and to our students. I'm very, very pleased to be able to offer these measures on an immediate basis to help our post-secondary sector and to maintain academic continuity and success while ensuring, as paramount, the safety of all of our citizens. Thank you very much for all of your time today. Take care.
Okay, we'll go to the phone line. First question.
From Travis Benraj at Global News.
Hi there, Premier. The head of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario is saying that there are nurses that are getting sick with COVID-19 because they're being told not to use masks, and then the patient turns out to be positive. She estimates that we need 9 million masks per week. I know that the health minister has said repeatedly that we have enough masks right now. I'm just wondering about that, and also I'm trying to confirm a report that Ontario sent equipment to Quebec, even though we are in desperate need of equipment here.
Well, I'll confirm that, first of all, with the nurses. I can't tell hospitals what to do and what not to do. I could highly recommend that they do give anyone that needs masks masks. And we went to the supply area to make sure that we had the mask. I saw them myself. We have millions and millions on order. It's not from a lack of trying, but everyone around the world right now wants the same masks, and we're going to make sure that we have the masks. We have enough to keep us going over the next couple of weeks, and in the meantime, on a daily basis, we're getting millions of supplies coming in. And I'll tell you, when it comes to any of our neighbors, we did not send any of Ontario's supply directly over to Quebec. And I've had an opportunity to speak to Francois Legault. I have, like I have with all premiers, I've given them some contacts to call and place an order. If he wants, that's going to be strictly up to him, but we did not take anything out of our distribution centers at all to ship it to Quebec. I did give Francois and other premiers contacts to suppliers, and I'd help any premier, I'd help any province wherever we could.
So, Premier, why then is Ontario, or why then is the Quebec Premier thanking you for a transfer of some equipment?
Well, I can tell you, I'll be very, very clear again. We did not transfer any equipment over there. I gave him a lead, the same company actually, that we were able to get 100,000 masks. He ended up calling him and asking him if they had any extras. The gentleman said he had a shipment in Quebec and Montreal, and I connected them. So if that's what he's referring to, thank you. Thank you, Francois. We have a great relationship, but we did not take one single item out of our distribution center.
Next question.
From Christina Tinelia at CP24.
Hi, thank you so much, Premier. My questions are for Education Minister Stephen Lecce. So, Minister, I understand the announcement, kindergarten to grade 3, 5 hours of work per student per week, grade 4 to 6, 5 hours of work per student per week. The question we're getting is for parents who are essential workers working 40 plus hours a week still. What is your advice and direction to them if they're not home to be able to help their kids, under the age of 10 with this kind of instruction?
Absolutely. As I acknowledged earlier, I think as all ministers have acknowledged, including the Premier, this is an extraordinary time and it imposes great difficulty on everyone, especially parents who are at home or in some cases who are working. And irrespective of their circumstance, we want them to know that we are providing them with additional resources and guidelines and assistance in how they can be best positioned to help educate their child. Remember, this program we're unveiling today empowers educators to be part of the solution. It is asking teachers to restore that teacher-student connection, to ensure that there's some sense of predictability for parents, that you have with confidence what the subject material is in advance, what the themes are by subject and by grade, and more importantly, the hours. And I know that educators are going to be as flexible as they can to accommodate some of those individuals that are still working in the labor market. We want flexibility. We have to all be flexible. We have to all rise to the challenge. But I want every parent to know this program is built in part to help remove that obligation that so far was really on them alone. It's now to empower teachers to teach, to get support staff to support our kids. And we're going to continue to do that every step of the way.
Thank you, Minister. My next question is for the teachers and those who work in schools, including, educational workers, janitorial staff, all the support workers. Will the board continue to pay them? Is that up to the board across the province to make that decision?
Yes.
And if it is up to the board, what direction have you given them, if you are able to give them any direction on this?
Yeah, at the end of the day, employees within our schools are employees of the boards of education, not the province. However, we are in an extraordinary period of time, and we're going to need everyone within the system, every public servant, to step up and do their part to help families and students and parents at home. So we're going to make sure that we optimize every human resource that exists within our department. If it means asking bus drivers to literally drive materials in a safe manner to a student's home that does not have access to broadband or just cannot get it in a remote part of the province, we will do that. We are open to every idea. at every solution, utilizing every person within the ministry to support our parents. And now, while boards will make decisions based on their own circumstance on the ground, I want to see every person who's being paid make a difference in their community, and I know that they will.
Next question.
From Chris Rochway at Toronto Star.
Oh, hi. My question is for Minister Lecce. I'm just wondering why you're going to go ahead with final grades as opposed to a pass-fail system. Students have different circumstances, and they may start up later if they don't have a computer. I mean, is this fair, especially for grade 12 students?
Yeah, I mean, the whole premise of ensuring that there is some grading program is especially for those kids in grade 12 that need those courses for the purpose of graduation. And so it's designed to ensure that we have a robust program where students are learning, that they're being led by a teacher in Ontario curriculum materials. And so we think it's important for students at home to know that the next few weeks is really a time of learning. And while school may be out until the 4th, classes are back in session, and they have a role to play to be disciplined and be focused on the materials and to be graded. Now, I want to be clear, Chris, that there is an element of flexibility and reasonableness that's being communicated to the sector, to educators, to our federation partners. Everyone recognizes the situation we're in. And there's going to be that nimbleness, that flexibility, that reasonableness that I think the professional development of teachers will demonstrate. But we've actually encouraged it, for them to be as reasonable as possible, maintaining the integrity of those courses. We think it's important that we don't lose this quarter, this period of the semester. We think it's so vital in Ontario, as other jurisdictions have done, to ensure children remain learning while at home in a safe space. We want to make sure kids take this process seriously.
Okay, and my second question is for Minister Romano. What are you looking at for the fall for colleges and universities? Are you considering holding the fall term online for them as a precautionary measure with in-person classes starting in the winter term? Is that a possibility?
Right now, we remain focused on addressing the current immediate needs within the sector. We have effectively been able to move all of our institutions into online learning. As I mentioned earlier, the aspect that relates to digital proctoring and grading of examinations was critical to ensuring that we can complete students' academic years. With respect to what the future summer and potentially fall semester hold, we continue to work together with our post-secondary education providers. I continue to speak on a regular basis, have daily or bi-daily conversations with the presidents of all of our colleges and universities, working very closely with them to determine what are the next steps with respect to, in some circumstances, as indicated, that summer term, as well as the following fall term. But right now, we continue to work every single day with the information available to us to make sure we can make the best possible decisions for our sector, for our province, and for every individual residing within it. But currently, we're addressing the immediate needs, and we're certainly continuing to focus on the medium and long-range forecasts as well. At the present time, we know that institutions will be maintaining digital online learning, and we will continue that. And we're looking at measures to ensure that we can maintain that continuity wherever possible in a digital format. And if it's not possible in a digital format, which relates more specifically to colleges, we're working very closely with our providers therein to ensure that labs, practicums, things of that nature can also be concluded. Because at the end of the day, our main fundamental concerns, it remains the success of our students, the continuity of that academic success, provided it in no way interferes or impinges upon health and safety of all of our students, faculty, staff, and the community at large. Thank you.
Next question.
From Colin DeMello at CTV News.
Hi, good afternoon. My question is for the Premier and Education Minister. So, as you know, Manitoba has announced that the school year is indefinitely cancelled due to COVID-19. I know that you're waiting for further direction from the Chief Medical Officer of Health on whether or not you're going to extend the closure beyond May 4th. But you say that you want to provide parents predictability. Why not provide parents predictability now by making a definitive decision on the rest of the school year?
Well, I will pass that over to the Minister of Education.
Thank you for the question. I think what we're trying to do here is be as transparent as possible. What we know today, based on the advice of Dr. Williams and the command table following a discussion that the Deputy Premier and the Minister of Health and I had just days ago, is that there needs to be an extension of the closure. So we're announcing that today, till May 4th for students. That's a prudent step to maintain the safety of your child. What we're also indicating is that given the fluidity of this situation, given how quickly this is changing hour to hour, let alone day or week by week, we have an obligation to continue communicating, and we will. And I think parents recognize this circumstance we're in. But when it comes to the way forward, we're going to ensure that learning takes place irrespective of the circumstance of when students return into schools. They're back in session. Learning will commence with a program that ensures teacher-led learning, a program that has additional resources for students, additional supports for educators to give them the professional development when it comes to online and virtual learning environments. We're doing everything we can at lightning speed, working with every partner in the sector to make sure your child remains safe while learning at home. And we're going to continue to do that. And should we need to extend the school year based on the scientific medical advice of Dr. Williams, we will do so without reservation. That's our obligation. But I think there are parents out there that would like us to take an iterative approach. And the reason for that is that if we can, based on the medical advice, retain some of the school year in class, then we should. I think parents would love to see their kids, assuming, of course, always safety being the guiding principle. If we can save some of that year, we should and we will. If we cannot, based on the advice of the command table and Dr. Williams, then of course we'll continue on this practice, continue building it up for the benefit of students.
And to you, Minister Lecce, grade 7 and 8 students will be getting about 10 hours per week of online distance learning. High school students, though, are only going to be getting about 90 minutes to 3 hours per week, depending on whether or not they are semestered or non-semestered. Why are they getting such little time compared to kids of younger grades? And just as well, if you need to extend the school year into the summer, will you do that?
Yeah, on the summer program, we've not made a determination because we just don't have the advice of Dr. Williams on where the rest of the school year may be in the context of health and safety. We'll continue to communicate to parents based on the advice we get in the coming days and weeks. I recognize they'd like to know that. We hope that we can preserve the year, and we believe that the program we unveiled today allows for credit accumulation, it allows for teacher-led education, it allows our students to keep learning, albeit in a different format, in a different place, but with the same material, the same teacher, and the same curriculum that's going to help get them to the next level to optimize their potential. In the context of the differential of hours, we're really trying to put an emphasis on all, both elementary and on high school, giving sufficient hours and clarity to parents of what they should expect through this process. But for many educators, they will tell you and tell us that there needs to be some additional times on the foundation principles in elementary school, which is why we've made that determination. It actually follows other problems models, but based on our own consultation with directors and others of education, we really want to see an emphasis on giving more time to those young students that may need additional direction in their education.
Next question.
From Alison Jones at the Canadian Press.
Hi, Premier. Yesterday you spoke about putting an iron ring of protection around long-term care homes, but we know COVID-19 is already spreading through a lot of homes, 23 in the province by my last count, and we know it accounts for about a third of the deaths. Long-term care residents account for a third of the deaths approximately in the province. How can you reassure families who have loved ones in these homes that there's more that you're doing to protect them?
Well, as I mentioned yesterday, we're going to go for 24/7 screening. We have put, I believe it's $243 million more into the budget to make sure that there's frequent cleaning and other additional items that they need. But it really comes down to making sure, and I think everyone's obeying by it. I know my mother-in-law's in long-term care, and my wife hasn't been able to see her. They've locked that area down. It's critical that before patients get transferred as well, say from a hospital to long-term care, that they get tested and make sure that they're isolated for 2 weeks. Anyone coming in and out of the facilities, I'd highly recommend, and again, I'm not a medical doctor by any means, I'd highly recommend that we get those people tested as well. We have to protect our seniors at all cost. we can't leave any stone unturned, and that's what we're doing. And I'll just ask if the Minister of Health, if that falls under her preview, if she has any comments on that as well.
Well, it's especially important right now that we do put that iron ring around long-term care homes and protect our seniors living there, as well as in retirement homes and other congregate areas. We are making sure, of course, there's no visits unless it's for palliative purposes, that we're checking with staff, we're checking with visitors, we're checking everyone that comes in. Ongoing cleaning is a complete concern that we want to make sure with that $243 million that are going to long-term care homes, that they are going to be cleaned and sanitized, because we know that so many of the residents in our long-term care homes have other physical conditions that may render them very susceptible to COVID-19. As the Premier indicated, we will leave no stone unturned to make sure that they receive the protection they deserve.
Thank you. And for Minister Lecce, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit more about the role for teachers in this new learning plan. Are there going to be any support for teachers in rolling this out? Some of them may have young children at home or difficult circumstances in trying to help students.
Yeah, we are definitely providing resources to educators in the context of professional development to ensure that we're creating, a baseline of knowledge when it comes to online learning, virtual learning environments. That's some of your students right now. There may be kids at home that are on virtual learning environments. Essentially, it's an online platform where the classroom is dynamic, where the teacher's in front of you. You can upload reports and mark and courses. All these things happen right now in Ontario in a minority of classrooms. We want to really expand that reach, expand that capacity, because it really can add value, a more interactive experience for your child. So we're going to continue to invest in professional development. We're going to continue to invest in enabling our educators to do the best they can given this very tough circumstance on all of us. But we do have an expectation that our kids are going to keep learning in a safe environment, yes, but learning the curriculum and mitigating a phenomenon of learning loss. That if we don't, if these kids don't use it, they lose it. And we've got to be working hard right across the sector, right across the province, in every region, north, south, east, and west, to make sure that every child, from special needs, special education children, to those with mental health challenges, that every child, the full spectrum of children in the wonderful diversity that we have in our province, that they know that they're going to learn and they're going to do it safe. And I think teachers really appreciate that they are part of that solution. I've reached out to the Teacher Federation partners, the union leaders personally, to convey the importance of this cooperation. And what I'm hearing today is a spirit of cooperation to do whatever we can for these kids.
Next question.
From Cynthia Mulligan at City News.
Hi there. This question is for the Premier.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hello, Premier. It seems pretty obvious that most university and college students are not going to be able to get summer jobs, which they desperately need to pay for next year's tuition. Yes. Are you going to be able to offer them any breaks on tuition come the fall?
Well, that'd probably be a good question for our minister, and everything's on the table right now. As our stimulus package, we mentioned that was the first phase. I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to the Finance Minister, Treasury, and the Minister of Colleges and Universities. But I hear you. There's tens of thousands of students that rely on that money, and a lot of those students are paying for their own education, and then maybe their parents may not be able to afford it, and they're going out and contributing. So I think it's important that we come up with a program. It all depends on how this curve goes, Cynthia, and if we can get it to start going down and opening up the economy a bit, then that may be an opportunity for them. But you make a very valid point, and I'll pass that over to the Minister of Colleges and Universities.
Okay, thank you, Premier. I have one more question for you. Tomorrow is rent day for many people. Tenants have been telling City News that some landlords are using threats to get them to pay their April 1st rent, even though they've lost their jobs and don't have any income. I know you've promised that nobody will be evicted, but what protections are in place are you offering for these tenants and for landlords too? Because if they don't get paid, they're hurting as well.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult situation on both sides, and I'll be very, very clear. This isn't a blank check that people can just say, okay, I'm not paying my rent. If you're working, you have to pay your rent. If you have income, if you've lost your job, and again, if you can't put food on the table, we passed legislation that you can't be evicted. And some people have this misnomer, and in some cases they're large corporations, but in a lot of cases, the landlords this is what they rely on, the people's rent to pay their bills as well. So I highly recommend communicate with your landlord, work with your landlord, and do the very best. And landlords are going to have to work with the tenants as well. It's a very, very difficult situation, and but people will not be evicted. And you just can't throw people out on the streets in these terrible times and these crises. So again, if you can pay your rent, please pay your rent. It's critical, and we're going to just have to work through this. And I just want to make sure everyone has the essentials, that they have food and they have shelter. We can work out the other items at a later date.
Next question.
From James Moore at News Talk 1010.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Premier. Could you tell us, please, what is going to happen to all of the provincial public employees? Christina mentioned earlier school support workers, I guess, would be an example. But employees who are not working through the response to the pandemic, are they going to continue to collect their full salaries, or should all or any of them expect to be furloughed or otherwise have to collect employment insurance?
Well, right now, that's an item that we're talking at Cabinet, but I want to try to pay as many people as possible. It's not their fault. A lot of this COVID-19, it's putting a lot of people in really tough positions. And, I support our frontline folks that are working hard when they're here, and it's just not their fault that they're at home. If it was, it'd be a different scenario, but I got to protect those people. I got to protect anyone who's not working. They have mortgages to pay, they have rent to pay, they have to put food on the table, and I'm not comfortable with laying provincial frontline people off. I just can't do it to families. I just can't.
All right, and I've got just a point of clarification for the Education Minister, if I may. Yep. Could you please just clarify when it comes to the closures on daycares? When you talk about the date of April 13th, does that mean that the daycares are in no way opening on the 13th, or is it just at which point you expect the closures to be extended?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. The daycares in private schools fall under the emergency order, which the Deputy Premier, the Solicitor General, and the Premier have expanded. So that order could be extended for 14-day intervals, which is why it brings us to the dates you just mentioned. Whereas the decision to close schools was a decision under the Education Act, a section that I used many weeks ago following the advice of Dr. Williams to close them, and I'm using that order to continue to close them. So I appreciate the dates don't align. It's the nature of the models and the tools we're utilizing. But the bottom line is daycares will remain closed until that date if and only if it is safe in the province to reopen them for daycares and private schools. Then, of course, upon the advice of Dr. Williams, we will do so. But at this